Hello everyone and welcome back. In this video I'm going to talk to you about the Baker Act and getting compensation for the fact that you were illegally held, or because you lost your job, or your reputation was ruined, things of that nature. And so I've talked about this in other videos, but we've been getting a lot of calls lately for people who were wrongfully Baker Acted, and I totally get it. It happened to my family member where they were illegally detained, and I see cases where people didn't meet criteria. I see cases where people were held beyond the 72 hours. I see cases where people were coerced into signing voluntary consent. I see cases where people ended up in a placement hearing and didn't get adequate representation, and they call us and they say, I want my money. I want to sue the police. I want to sue the clinician. I want to sue the hospital. I want to sue, the facility. And I have to give them the bad news. My team has to give them the bad news, which is, as a general rule, you cannot sue for any of this. Now, I'm not saying it's right. I'm just telling you what the law is. Now, when it comes to clinicians, I see very, very few, if any, cases where a clinician got it wrong. So I'm 99.9% of the cases that we're dealing with are either where the police Baker Acted somebody, or a doctor in a hospital Baker Acted somebody, or where there was like a telehealth conference. Somebody, basically interviewed the patient on Zoom inside the hospital, and they Baker Acted the patient. And then they got to the receiving facility and they were held too long, or they were held because they didn't meet criteria, all kinds of stuff. And unfortunately, and I wish I could tell you otherwise, because if I was able to sue, I would have been retired years ago. With all the cases, the calls that we get on cases where people were wrongfully Baker Acted. But the statute is very clear. The facility is an agent of the state's mental health system. The police are an agent of the state's mental health system and an agent of the state's criminal justice system. And as a general rule, and again, in the law, very few things are actually set in stone, but as a general rule, and the Baker Act statute even talks this, you cannot sue for this. You're not going to get any money. Now, God forbid you've been injured. We had a young lady that was sexually assaulted. That's a different story. I had another case where somebody was beaten up. That's a different story, because the hospital, the facility, has a duty to keep you safe. But if they simply violated the statute and didn't do it right, albeit intentionally, so they could bang your insurance and make more money, I'm sorry, but you're not getting any money out of this, which is why I have said, and I will continue to say, that the time to fight to get out is now. Don't even think about the idea that, well, you're going to wait and see what happens, or you're going to let your loved ones sit there because you think at the end of the case, if they get out, that there's some kind of pot of gold sitting at the end of the rainbow. It does not exist. You're not getting any money. I wish I could tell you otherwise. I'm sorry that we have to tell you this, but you cannot sue for this, which is why you should always fight to get out as soon as possible. As soon as is humanly possible, you should fight to get out. So I appreciate you guys calling me. I'm sorry I don't have better news. I wish I did. I don't know if I want to ask you to give me a thumbs up on this one, because I know how frustrating this is for people when they call us, and how disappointed they are. And people are losing jobs. Their reputations are getting ruined. It's heartbreaking. I can't do anything about it. Call your local state rep, state senator. Call the governor's office and say, hey, fix this thing. They just amended the statute in 2024, and they didn't really fix it, I don't think. In any event, I appreciate you tuning in. I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.